Hey, everybody. Welcome to Let's Get Real About Mental Health. I am your host, Mama Deb, and we have got a good one tonight. Before we dig into that, though, I just want to say I missed you guys so very much last week, and I am excited that we are back on schedule. And I appreciate your support in the with me having to be off for a week. I really appreciate you guys reaching out and saying, hoping everything is okay with me. It was no big, not a major thing, which it actually was not. I'm so grateful for that. But it's moved on, and now I got a lot to make up for. Is what I'm. So y'all ready for Halloween? You looking to be ready for the Halloween season? You can see that I am, because I put up my decorations like October 1. So what we're talking about tonight, this is a very interesting subject matter for me, because I am into finding different ways to help my mental health and try to be or my depression actually, try to be on the forefront of types of research to see what I can do for myself. And the one thing that is super important, I have to emphasize from the very, very beginning, you guys, this is just I just did research, and I don't have all the facts, but the way I'm going to present the facts, so you can go either way with it. But it's super important that everybody realize that when I say you have to have a support system, you need to do what you're going to do, that kind of stuff, it's super important that you realize that when I say a support system, I'm talking about a psychiatrist, a therapist, a good general practitioner. Those kinds of things are super important when we're trying to deal with our mental health and the way things are going to get put together. And the other thing that's really cool is what I'd like to talk about, like the banner I have is like something that I've run into recently is like I've realized that I don't need people to save me. I just need people to stand by myself while I save myself. And that is important, you guys, because no one can save you from the hell that mental health can bring on you. The only way to save anybody from it is to save yourself and dig your way out and find what works for you, for you, so you can really cater your mental health treatments with what's going on in your life and how you can do it. And that's one of the reasons I'm so very excited about tonight and talking about the way things affect the way some new treatments and, like marijuana, ketamine, and microdosing mushrooms. That is a big thing that is coming up nowadays in the mental health game and how to deal with it. I'm going to tell you right off straight away, so everybody hears me, this is not something that you should even begin to try to do on your own. You need to have your support team or your psychiatrist and your therapist at the very least to start integrating these types of things into your regimen for dealing with your mental health. I personally am on board with my therapist, my psychiatrist, and my general practitioner who sent me to everybody. They are in total support of me trying 2 of these 3 things. I would have really liked to have tried the 3rd, but they don't think I'm in a place where I should be open to that quite yet. And we're going to see what happens with it. So without further ado, let's start talking about how marijuana works, okay? The thing with cannabis, the THC, CBD, whatever you want to go with it, whatever part of it, when we're talking about THC and CBD, you're going to find that they both have a place in dealing with depression, okay? The thing to remember is that there are several different types of depression. And the depression that we're talking about is major depressive disorder. Okay, major depressive disorder there are actually like a well-known about 75 different types of major depressive disorder, depending on where the trauma comes from, what happened, how your life is being led. So that's what's important. Okay, you have to remember that, number 1. So number 2, about THC and about CBDs, you have to remember something. 20% of the populace worldwide has a micro adaptation of genes that makes it so that you can intake more cannabis than the rest of the population. And why is this important? This is important because those people in that 20% actually have the likelihood of becoming paranoid and almost like having a schizophrenic type of episode when they intake too much cannabis. So let me explain. If you think that like the receptors in your body are kind of like Pac-Man, the normal populace has 15 to 20 Pac-Man. Okay, so when you put in the cannabis, which is a little pellets, they can only take one in at a time. So we have 15 or 20 little pellets going into these receptors, the mutated gene receptors, right? So when you have the mutated gene, that 20%, instead of 15 or 20, we're talking like 50 or 60. So you can see the little 50 or 60, they come up and they get the pellet. Well, it changes the way that you react to your cannabis because you don't have 15 or 20 things full of it and bring it into your body. You have 50 or 60. So it's a fairly a very dumbed down version of it because I actually could not understand everything we're talking to. I have to send it to student Dr. Ben and get a translation. But that is a really rough, dumbed down way of explaining why cannabis works for some people and some people it actually makes paranoid. The interesting thing that I found about cannabis is that it does give you, and for me it works. I don't know about everybody else, but for me it works, where you have that spread time where you just kind of don't care. You're kind of just relaxed, and it allows your brain to go, okay, I don't need to worry about everything going on in the world, and I don't need to be anxious about everything going on in the world. I can just relax in that 15 to 20 minutes or however long you choose to maintain that high. That's why it works really well for me on my mental disorders. The interesting thing that I found out is that for pain relief, actually, cannabis works very well as anti-inflammatory properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and that is what scientists are discovering works so well on the pain threshold. So like people with like diabetic neuropathy, it really does help with the pain, but it helps by being an anti-inflammatory, not a pain reducer or a occupying the pain receptors like a narcotic would do. So I found that very interesting that we could actually narrow it down to everybody's like, it really gets away from the thought process of, well, it's a pain, it occupies the pain receptor, so it's like a narcotic or an opioid. That's not true. It actually works more effectively on your anti-inflammatory with its anti-inflammatory properties to lower the inflammation in the affected area, and that will reduce the pain. Excuse me, sorry. And I found that very interesting because in all the talk that we've always heard, most of my life anyway, about the marijuana's bad, marijuana's this is a Schedule 1, whatever. In actuality, it does not have the same properties that a Schedule 1 narcotic would have. So it really does blend for the conversation to happen about having marijuana be brought down on the narcotics scale. It should not be a Schedule 1. It doesn't work the same way. And now we're having research to actually support that thought process. So it's a very good thing for us. And again, I live in a state where all of this stuff is legal. So here in Oregon, it's not a big thing for me. We are allowed to smoke pot. We're allowed to grow pot. We're allowed to do all of those things. If you live in a state where it's all illegal, there's definitely the medical marijuana cards that might actually help you out and put you in a place where you can be less stressed about what's going on, less focused on every little problem that's going on in your life, and be able to be just relax and give your brain that little bit of a break that you get from your high, in my opinion, it's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I am allowed to take that break and I don't worry about anything. You know, I don't worry about whether or not we can pay the bills or do all that stuff. I get that just little bit of a break. I can go back to my regular life later, but I need to decompress, and that really helps me out. But what that is the other, that's why I love cannabis. I think that it has so many great healing properties. We all know that for a long time it's been used for glaucoma. And it goes along with what I was saying about it having anti-inflammatory properties, because if you look really close at glaucoma and the reasons that people smoke marijuana for it, it kind of all falls into place. So the next thing, oh my goodness, y'all, I had so much fun researching this, and I had so much fun figuring out what all the hype is about. It's absolutely amazing. So we're going to talk about ketamine. And initially, I was under the same thought process that just about the whole entire populace is, that ketamine is a horse tranquilizer. So let's stop the misnomer here. It can be used as an animal tranquilizer. It absolutely can. However, it gained popularity in the Vietnam War when it was used as a analgesic, or a not an analgesic, a way to anesthetize soldiers that were being helped in the field, because it put them in what we all have heard being called the K-hole or special K, or the keyhole, that will put the soldier's mind there so they could be, the medical procedures could happen to them and they wouldn't feel as much. They'd be kind of disassociated with their body, and it would allow for those medical things to happen. So we knew about ketamine all the way back in the 60s and 70s, when Vietnam War was going on. Again, you have to look at society for the reasons that things have not advanced, because it can be viewed as a drug, and people do abuse ketamine as a drug. That's the right word. Thank you so much, Uncle Beck. It's anesthesia. But with ketamine, it gained popularity, unfortunately, through the street drug scene and everything like that. But what they are thinking, and what they're realizing now that they've started to do their research, is that it actually shows an immediate decrease in depressive, suicidal, and anxiety thoughts when they're given the treatment. Now, in the study that I read, okay, and it was from Yale Mental Health Psychiatry website where I read it, was that it is immediate. They're given 2 to 5 sessions of ketamine in a month, and they're accompanying it with trips to psychiatrists, trips to therapy, and some people actually even use TMS with it, which I will get to in a little bit. But those people have shown that immediately they went from having suicidal ideations to not having them anymore, to feeling like, oh, hey, I can conquer this, I can win this. And this is the interesting thing about ketamine, is that these treatments, the effects of these treatments do not wear off when the drug is out of your system, like most other antidepressants or anti-anxiety or sedation does. When they are, for example, Valium works until Valium is out of your system. Well, with ketamine, it has this interesting property that allows for the person to feel the benefits of the ketamine for up to a month, 2 months, or 3 months out. And there are actually people who felt it for a year. They went a full year after their initial treatments and were like, no, I don't have those thoughts anymore. So it's absolutely amazing the things that can be done with ketamine. So how does ketamine work? Ketamine is unlike any other antidepressant that we have, because the antidepressants on the market today work with your SIRI, your serotonin intake receptive. I'm sorry, I'll get that wrong. I know I will. But the thing is they work with that. And that's the way that they work. And when the drug wears off, you obviously, those of you who are on antidepressants, anti-anxieties, you know this. When the drug wears off and you don't take it every day, you start to go through withdrawals. And you start to feel those feelings and all that bad stuff starts coming back. But with the with ketamine, it actually stimulates the BDNF, which is the brain-derived neuropathic factor. What the hell is that? What did I just say? Basically, when you boil it down, it is fertilizer for the brain. What it allows for it to do is actually, it kind of stimulates and encourages regrowth of those receptors so that those thought processes could go away. Okay. It is absolutely, thank you very much, Jenny. I knew I was going to get that wrong. It allows for the brain to restore and regrow those connections. So that is why we are seeing so many results with it going 1 month out, 2 months out, and having reduced, or if not none, none of these suicidal thoughts, because the ketamine is allowing and encouraging those regrowths. That absolutely amazed me. Absolutely amazed me. The thing is ketamine is not common yet. It is not a commonplace treatment. And I think that it's going to become a more commonplace treatment. The fear that I have, and this is a real fear, and y'all, I have no scientific basis for this. I have no research behind it, but this is the fear I have. The fear I have is that ketamine treatments will get pushed to the back burner and not encouraged as much because they don't require, in some people, they don't require multiple doses or multiple treatments. It's not like with antidepressants, you got to take it every day. So my concern is that big pharma will get involved in this treatment and will kind of downplay it. And that's unfortunate because I think that this is the most excited I've been about a treatment in a long, long time. It's something that I really want to get into. I really want to try. But my support team wants me to be stabilized a little bit more than I have been because I've been struggling pretty hard recently with my mental health. So once I stabilize, then we'll talk about being able to do that. And again, it's like a team effort. You have to have the whole team on board in order to get effective treatment. And, for me right now, it wouldn't be effective because I might feel the decrease in my major depressive disorder, but I would still have depression from my physical ailments. So we need to get all of that together before I make the transition over to using ketamine. So ketamine and TMS. You guys, I'm sure all of you are familiar with TMS is. TMS is the targeted magnetic something. I can't remember the name. I'm sorry. What the basic premise of TMS is that it will isolate areas in the brain where you have a trauma stored or a trauma would be the best word. And it allows you to recognize the trauma, live through the trauma, but conquer the trauma so that you can let go of it and you don't have to have the flashbacks. You deal with it in that one particular session in that day and time, but you don't have to have it lingering over you to have like flashbacks, bad dreams, all kinds of things like that. With ketamine, they are now saying that if they give doses of ketamine, a certain dose, that it allows for the person to be more vividly in that space and in that time so the TMS actually works a whole lot better. Interesting, right? Very interesting new therapy. I think that would be a great idea for somebody who is strong enough to go through it. Me personally, I'm not at a place where I feel like TMS and ketamine would help me, but that does not mean that you're not going to, it's not going to work for somebody. It's just not going to work for me right now. So don't take my word as I'm not going to do it as that's just the way it should be. No, please explore these options with your team, with your therapist, with a psychiatrist, your doctor. All of those people make up your team, and that's something that you should absolutely be exploring this topic with. Now, when we talk about ketamine doses, okay, ketamine doses to be therapeutic are very, very, very minuscule. We're not talking about doing a street dose of ketamine. We're talking about doing probably about a tenth, if not more, smaller than that, of what a street dose of ketamine is considered. Because you want to be able to, with TMS, you want to be able to work through the trauma and be okay with it and deal with all the aftermath in that session in that day. With the long-term ketamine use, you want to be able to build those receptors back up. You want to be able to have your brain-derived neuropathic factor. You want it to be engaging again. You want it to be rebuilt. You want to be able to use it. So that's why we do minuscule doses of ketamine. We don't use the big doses because the big doses take you to one of three places. It takes you to the keyhole where you're open to everything and it's just, but you just don't care because you're so high. B, it takes you to the place where you're so damn high that you're like, you have anesthesia in your body. You can't feel anything. You're barely able to think. And maybe you're falling asleep and you're not in. I don't get that. Okay. That's a place where I'm questioning because, like, if I'm going to get high, I want to be able to be functioning in my high. I don't want to be passed out and asleep in my high because that just does not work for me. Defeats the whole purpose of doing the things that I want to do. You know what I mean? So like you have to be under direct medical supervision. It's not something that I recommend you try at all on your own. Never. I would not recommend doing ketamine ever in any way, shape, or form that you choose to do it without somebody there with you, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to trigger. So you have to have somebody there with you. That's just the smart thing to do. So like ketamine is the one thing that I really was excited to try and I really wanted to get into it, but my team has decided that we are not going to do that at this time. We're going to actually go to the third thing that I want to talk about tonight, and we're going to see how that works. We're going to actually start with, y'all are going to laugh. I know. We're going to start using mushrooms. We're going to microdose mushrooms. So for me, microdosing mushrooms means we ground it all up, we weigh it out, we put it in a capsule. Okay, my stuff is in a capsule, so therefore I cannot take too much. I want to just do therapeutic doses, and I take one for 3 days and then take 4 days off. And what this does for me, it actually helps in the leg time. What I mean by leg time is like every day around, I'd say between 4 and 8, I get very depressed. I get very sad. It doesn't matter how good my day went. It doesn't matter what's on my mind. I get very depressed and very sad in that junction of time. And I have found with microdosing, it alleviates that junction of time. I feel good all day. I feel like it is putting me, it's like making, bridging the gaps between the medication I have to take at night and the medication I take during the day. Okay. And it bridges that gap so well that it actually makes a huge difference in the way that I present myself, the way that I can carry on conversations, the way that I actually interact with other human beings. And we've seen this in my home life with my father-in-law and my husband, as well as really good friends. They've seen the difference in the way I'm acting. And those of you who interact with me online, I'm sure that you will actually start to see a difference here shortly in the way that I carry myself. And I think that we're going to see a big difference in the ability for me to interact in a conversation. So like during those hours, it was hard for me, and I was scared to put myself out there because it was hard for me to conquer over my fear and my sadness. With the microdosing, I think that it's actually made such a difference that I think that people who don't see me every day and just talk to me online are going to see a big difference. So how do mushrooms work? It's very, very interesting. So they don't call them mushrooms. They call them psilocybin. Okay. It is, as all of us know, it's got hallucinogenic properties. It has the ability to affect an area of the brain called, and I might mispronounce this, please, student Dr. Ben, if you're here, correct me if I pronounce this wrong. It's called the colostrum of the brain. What that is, it's deep in the brain, and it's a very thin layer, okay? And in that thin layer, they're saying that they found that a lot of our like ego, our mood changes, all of that stuff is controlled in that area of the brain. If that is true, and in fact, because we're in the big research stage, we don't know the effects long term of microdosing. We are really truly in the research area of it. So there's not a lot of information out there, but what little information there is indicates that this could be a really, really good thing for people who suffer from major depressive disorder. And the reason being is that what happens when you take this, okay, when you take it, and the reason we do a 3 on 4 off is because we don't know the levels in which the microdosing is going to stay in your system or it's going to go out of your system. We have to really kind of play a waiting game right now to see like getting levels checked and what we're looking at and having MRIs. So like I had an MRI when I started, and I had an MRI after the first 2 weeks of dosage so that they could actually look at what was going on in my brain. And what they found, and it's what they found in the study that I read from Yale Health and Psychiatry Mental Health Division, is that in the colostrum of your brain, okay, the area that has your attention span, your ego, your really like your hype center is what I like to think of it. I don't know if that's 100% correct, but it found that when you take the mushrooms in the course in which I just said 3 days on, 4 days off, there is an actually decrease in colostrum activity, from 15 to 30% decrease in that activity. Now, if things go the way that we feel they're going to go, and the research continues to indicate the things that we hope it's going to indicate, we're going to see a place where that overactiveness in the colostrum that is responsible, that they think, now this is, thank you guys, this is all research, we don't have any firm answers yet. They think that that is an issue with major depressive disorder, anxiety, ADD, and ADHD. They think that that is the area that needs to be calmed down in order for us to get some relief. So, yes, again, Jenny, thank you. Appreciate it. If things go the way that we're hoping they go with this research, we're going to see that that area of the brain calms down significantly to the point where it's what they consider normal instead of overactive like it is in people with mental health disorders. Now, when I say mental health disorders, you guys, I'm not talking about schizophrenia. I'm not talking about multi-personality disorders or anything like that. I'm talking about the ADHD, the anxiety, the major depressive disorder, and ADD, I think I said it. Yeah, I'm talking about those. Those are the only areas that have had research done on them. It is amazing research, but we don't know the effects that it might have on other mental health disorders. So I'm telling you now, you guys, do not take what I'm saying as gospel and say, oh, well, Mama Deb said we should be doing microdosing mushrooms. That's not what I said. What I said was it works for me and I'm following the research and I think that it's really good. Okay. It is amazing the things that I have felt and the differences that I've felt in my personality or my perception of the world. It's a really great thing for me, but that's me. And I did a lot of research before I brought this to my doctor. And when you bring it to your doctor, you have to be, this is the thing, you have to be educated. You have to know that, sorry, guys, I got distracted by something. See, this is what happens when Beck's not here. I get distracted and I shouldn't be. But, you know, he's got bad internet. So nothing we can do about it. I think the thing that's super important, you guys, is that you do your own research. When I came into the doctor's office and I said, listen, I want to try these things that I've done research on, and I want to try them to treat my depression. First off, I have to tell you, I had to switch doctors twice. And the reason I had to switch doctors twice is because the first MD would not even have a conversation with me about the uses of medical marijuana. He's like, I don't believe in it. It's bad. It's a drug. It should not be used in medicine. I'm like, okay, see ya. The next person that I went to, in all honesty, they're like, I don't know enough about it. I would be willing to research it and like, so we could get on board. But I have a colleague who knows a lot about this and I would like to refer you to them. And I absolutely 100% took the referral, worked with that doctor. That doctor found me a psychiatrist that was on board with the way I was thinking. And my therapist is just my therapist. She's just fabulous. And when I went in there with the research and saying, this is what the area of the brain that it works on, and this is how it works, and this is why I'd like to try it. I really did educate myself and say, look, I know that I'm in the 20% that if I smoke too much, I get paranoid. So I don't want to do too much. Like people laugh at me all the time, you guys. They're like, oh, we like the trailers. Okay, they drive me crazy. If you smoke too much pot, or for me, if I smoke too much pot, I see trailers, right? And I can't handle it. It freaks me out so bad that I just can't do it. I absolutely cannot do it. And I agree with Ox 100% here. Ox just said, if you see a doctor that says weed is bad, get a new doctor. 100%, because they have to be open to the possibilities that there are medically significant medical conditions that can be helped by CBDs, THC, whatever the case may be. So that's what I did. I went to my doctor, the third doctor, and we came up with a plan, okay? Now, you can do this in one of two ways, in my opinion. They wanted me to do edibles so I could control a little bit more what was going on with it. Here's the problem. With this, okay? The problem with this is that we have edibles affect me in such a way that it is easy for me to, like, what we call overdose. I'm going to answer that question really quick. I just actually, Jenny, I did do some research when I was looking at the mushrooms and stuff like that. They actually are beginning to, now this is just the beginnings. I'm not talking about anything advanced. It's absolutely the very beginnings of looking at peyote, because it has so many of the same elements that mushrooms do, and it affects the body in such a similar way that they are actually looking to start beginning trials to look and see how it works with the how it works on depression and anxiety. I would be very, very interested to see how that happens, because I think that it is something that is obtainable for everyone. When with the rising costs of pharmacies, pharmaceuticals and stuff like that, that is something that is actually 100% obtainable. And it's so interesting that that now we're seeing like things like shrooms and peyote becoming a conversation piece for depression and anxiety and ADD and all that, because it is so much better for you, so much easier on your body than, say, opioids, and a lot of antidepressants, because almost all antidepressants have a property in them that when you go off them, you go through withdrawals, because your body's doesn't have that substance anymore, and that's kind of scary for me. For me anyway. I don't know if it's scary for anybody else, but that's definitely scary for me. So where was that? Okay, so edibles. Get back on that. With edibles, I was taking, like, you know, you get your little edible boxes, like, oh, there's so much for every piece, or there's, you know, so many micrograms in this, and I would take it, and I would take. Edibles do not agree with Mama Deb. Okay, they absolutely do not. Every time I've taken an edible, I have had the worst reaction. And whether or not you believe you can overdose on cannabis or not, that's what I felt like. I felt like I was overdosing. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was vomiting, like not vomiting, I was gagging because there was nothing in my stomach. I felt like I was on fire. I felt like I could just take off all my clothes and run around naked in the neighborhood, and that would be just fine. And then once my husband got me calmed down enough, I was like, okay, I'm just going to lay in this bed. I felt like I was sinking through the mattress and I was going to die and suffocate. That is how I figured out that I am paranoid. I'm part of the 20% that if you take too much, there's too many receptors. And yeah, I absolutely did not like that at all. And it happened every time. I've tested edibles 3 times, and I will never take another edible again. And when I told this to my doctors, I'm like, no freaking way, this is what's happening, right? So they said, okay, well then, you know, because you can't control what you get in a joint. You know, you roll it up, whatever. They're like, just take it till you get a head change and see like what you need from there. And for me personally, that head change is all I need. It's all I need. If I go from I'm upset about something, I'm just really just overwhelmed and my brain is spinning, that couple hits from the cannabis really does me well, and it allows me to calm down. Math Pig, I think that this is actually a conversation for another day, because I'm going to, that's one of the things I'd like to do. DMT, actually, I've heard a lot of really good things about it, but we will definitely be doing a show on it because there's just so much to talk about with DMT. Yeah, Jenny, I talked about that earlier, that you should not try these drugs, especially ketamine and shrooms, without somebody there with you to make sure that you're okay. So that's what we decided for my marijuana use, was just look for the head change. And that's pretty much where it is, unless it's on a, you know, Saturday night, Friday night, Saturday night when I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons, and sometimes I go overboard. Yes, those of you that were there will remember that show, and it was crazy. I couldn't function. It was too much. But with like now I don't do ketamine. Like I said, I do the I'm going to show this really quick. Beth hooks up that Ox. That's why she buys it now, to get the medical benefit without getting high. There is absolutely legitimate claim to that. You don't need to get high to get the effects of marijuana on your depression and stuff. So this is another thing. A friend of mine is part of a small trial, small dose for his depression. It has been worked better than anything else that he has tried in 10 years. That is absolutely what I was saying, is ketamine has shown such amazing results with depression. It just allows for that. It allows for that regrowth and that reattachment, I guess would be a good way to do it. Because it works. It works so well. And I think the key to using the ketamine is, I think you need to be in a stable area with your depression and your mental health in order for it to work the best way it possibly can. Am I saying that you shouldn't take it unless you're completely stable? No, I'm saying go talk to your doctor and be open and honest with your doctor and your psychiatrist and your therapist, and really think, really, before you jump in and say, I'm going to try this, go through your doctors, talk to them, because they're open to it now. They're open to having those benefits of those different things. And the thing is that you have to remember that the doctors who say, no, I'm not into it, I'm not going to do that, whatever, find a new doctor. You need somebody who's up to date, somebody who has, and the thing is also, you have to remember that, like I said earlier, ketamine is, Ketamine hasn't been studied long-term. It's only been since 2019 that we started having these studies done. So that's not very long, y'all. That's 5 years. 5 years doesn't mean is like nothing in the long term of things. So yes, of course, look at long term before you make the decision, or what you feel is long term, and discuss it with your doctors. That way you'll know what you can expect. And that's the importance of having an open, honest conversation with your doctor, because they're the ones who are going to be helping you deal with the side effects of anything that you try for therapy wise. So we're talking about microdosing mushrooms, okay, or psilocybin. I always say that wrong. Anyway, we're talking about doing that. So this is brand freaking new. This research is in its infancy, you guys. I cannot stress that enough, and stress how important it is that you do your own research. You think, if you think it's going to work for you, then you absolutely 100% take it to your doctor and get a regimen worked out. For me, the mushrooms are, like I said, are ground down. It's all ground down, put in a capsule, so I know exactly how much I'm getting, in theory, how much I'm getting each day. And I take it for 3 days on and 4 days off. And the reason for that is that I am allowing for a break in case my body is sensitive to what I'm taking in, and it puts me into the hallucinogenic stage, which is not what I want. Okay, I want the medical stage where it's allowing me a decrease in the activity in the colostrum and allows me to be more mellow in my thought process. And all signs show that this is absolutely going to all signs indicate that it's going to be a breakthrough drug for anxiety, a huge breakthrough drug. However, like I said, it's in its infancy, and we cannot claim, microdosing psilocybin or magic mushrooms or whatever you want to call it, it is absolutely the way to go. It's going to help you 100%. We can't make that claim at all, and no one should be making that claim, okay? Because the studies are really in their infancies. It's been a year and like 4 or 5 months since they started studying it. That is nowhere near enough. Okay, ketamine has been studied for almost 5 years, and we're still saying we need more research. We need to figure out what's going on. So please don't take this to say, and take this podcast and say, hey, you have depression, you should probably try microdosing mushrooms. If that's something that you think the person should do, please assist them and get the research and get to know what's going on in their brain, because things affect people in totally different ways. I have trauma. Okay, I have absolute trauma. I have complex PTSD. Ketamine can help me hit those spots and work through them, whereas mushrooms, taken in too large of a dose, can put me somewhere where I think I'm back in the trauma and I can't control it. So that is absolutely something you need to consider when you're considering doing any of these drugs. Sorry, coughing up here. So we're having a little bit of an interesting debate about the whole doctor versus, doctors are into the science. Student Dr. Ben and other people are like, talking about how natural medicines are better than synthetic medicines. And there's an argument for both sides, you guys. Like the science behind medicine and the way it breaks down and the way drugs are broken down that are synthetic drugs, it's absolutely fascinating to me. It's absolutely fascinating. But I do also understand that the thought process of if it's natural and not synthetic, it might have less side effects. I understand both schools of thought because, as you guys know, I was a paramedic for a very long time. So I believe in our healthcare system. I believe it's broken. But I also believe in the way science is advancing and making medicine better. That absolutely 100% goes along with the way things are going with the research towards depression and anxiety and other mental health disorders is that we're finding that drugs that are not necessarily were considered taboo 20 years ago actually have really good indications and really good initial test results to show that they would be helpful in these disorders. I mean, let's be honest, you guys, come on. Over 300 million people worldwide suffer from major depressive disorder. 300 million. It is actually now one of the highest rated, I think it's in the top five for reasons that people go on disability because they can't function with their major depressive disorder. That is absolutely something that we need to bring to the forefront and encourage companies and doctors and student doctors who are making the research known for what these things can possibly help us with. Because I don't know about you guys, but I would be grateful for, and I am grateful for like 20, 30 minutes where I get that downtime when I smoke cannabis to make me feel like I'm normal again. And I know we're all going to say, well, F normal, right? But for somebody with my brain and the way that I deal with my disorders, just not having to be so revved up all the time and worrying about everything. And can I take care of this person in my life? Can I do this in my life? Can I do all these things? Oh my God, it's so overwhelming. And the cannabis really brings me the much needed relief that I absolutely need it because I cannot continue to think that way and be productive. The same thing for me with the micro dosing of the mushrooms. It really does take down my intense level. Like, if that makes sense. I feel very intense sometimes with the things going on in my brain and all the things I'm thinking about. And I feel like if I don't get the thought process out, it's not going to go out. And it's just so much. And I have so much to share, but I don't want to overwhelm myself. And I don't want to feel like, I am doing, not doing myself a service and not doing the rest of the world a service, because I feel like the things going on in my head are very important and I need to share them with the world. So the microdosing of mushrooms, it stays with me longer, and I feel like I can come down and present myself in a little bit more of a way that would be functional for other people to hear my thoughts and to embrace my thought process. Because, like, I'm sure all of you know, because I've said it enough, I still have like huge anxiety coming on and doing my podcast. And I've been doing it for like 6 to 8 months now. And I just absolutely still have huge anxiety about it. And being able to present myself in a way that is understandable, and I get across how important things are to me when the research, it is absolutely the necessity that I use cannabis, because that allows me to bring my thoughts across in a little bit more clearer of a fashion, as where I feel like I could be understood more, if that makes sense. But yeah, so you guys, like, super excited about this new wave of research going for mental health disorders. I'm really excited to see what they can come up with. I would really like to see where they can go with ketamine and schizophrenia and stuff like that. I'd like to see what the research leads to. It's very important that we stay on top of this kind of stuff. So that is really all I have for tonight. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or concerns that I can address in the next couple of minutes? And if you don't feel comfortable putting in the chat, by all means, please hit me up on YouTube. I have a Twitter also. And you can hit me up anywhere: Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Discord. I have accounts on all of that stuff. I just don't really use some of them as much, but I am getting used to checking them daily at the very least. So on that note, I am going to go ahead and wind this up. And I just want to remind you guys that, you know, first things first, be proactive in your care. Don't let doctors make decisions for you that you are not comfortable with. Be proactive. Absolutely be proactive in the in your own care so that you can know exactly what's going on. If you have ideas for your own care, please research it and bring it to your doctors and go, I would like to try this. You come with research, you come with a bunch of facts. There's some things they're not going to be able to just kind of throw away. So with that being said, please do that. Please be aware of that. And as always, my darlings, just remember that I love you all, and I really appreciate you guys coming here and supporting my podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please look me up anywhere you can find me and send them. I will address them. But as always, you guys remember, you're perfect the way you are. And I love you. Bye. You guys have a good night.